Walters is open during the week from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. and open until 3 a.m. on the weekends, making Walters a great spot to watch the Olympics this month in Paris.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Here's the set. He fires. Swinging a slow roller left side. Lipscomb has it. He throws to Abrams for the out at second. The throw to first gets by Yepes. It hits the screen, and that'll allow Gorman to score. 1-0 St. Louis. Nationals cannot turn the double play. Abrams bounces, throw it gets by Yepes, and the Cardinals take advantage of some sloppy Nationals defense in this inning and have the game's first run.
So infield in with one out, and Alec Burleson the batter. And a long home run to right center last time up, 1 out of 4. Swinging a ground ball right side to Garcia's left and on through, a base hit into right field. And this is going to score both runners. Gorman from third, Ciani around third coming in to score on a single to right for Alec Burleson through the drawn-in infield. And the Cardinals add 2 more here in the top of the 9th. It's now St. Louis 6 and Washington nothing.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Tuesday, July 9th. 2024, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. We now are 1 week away from the 2024 MLB All-Star Game, which is on Tuesday night, July 16th. And for the Nationals, the All-Star break likely cannot come soon enough. The Nats on Monday concluded a 3-5 homestand with a 6-0 loss to the St. Louis Cardinals at Nationals Park as the Nats lost 3 of the 4 games in the series. The Nats for this regular season now are 42-49. This installment of the Nats Chat podcast brought to us by the DC Grays. This Saturday at the Washington Nationals Baseball Academy on Fort DuPont, the Grays are honoring the newly recognized batting averages for Josh Gibson, Leonard Wood, and Judd Wilson. To donate and learn more about the Grays, visit dcgrays.com. Coming up later in the show, a special Nats Chat podcast shout out. If you via this podcast would like to deliver a shout out to someone who you care about, email Tim Shovers at natschatpodcast@gmail.com. So we have talked about the Nats being in the midst of 17 consecutive days with no scheduled off day until the All-Star break. But consider this too. The Nats also are in the midst of a stretch of 26 games in 27 days. The Nats' last off day was June 27th. Their last off day prior to that was June 17th. Now, Mark, nobody should feel sorry for the Nats, so they're not going through anything that every other MLB team does not go through. But, if we're just analyzing this Nationals team, it right now does appear to be a team that very much could use an All-Star break.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they still have a week to go. It felt like this was the day that would have been appropriate at the end of a 7-game homestand. You get to Monday, you would think, okay, that's a typical off day. And instead, they had this wraparound series with the Cardinals, and so it ends up being 8 straight at home and then no break before you go on the road. And I hate to say that we saw this coming, but we saw this coming. Even go back to the road trip. Colorado, San Diego, they had the one off day, which they needed. And then we talked about it right away. Okay, 17 in a row here coming up to go into the break. And you combine that with the weather back here, which was just awful all week. The pitching staff struggles. And this is where you get to. Now, the pitching staff wasn't really the problem in this game. They had no offense. Defense wasn't good either. That was a problem. But this is where you find out what you're made of, I got to say. And I think Davey Martinez expressed a little frustration with that as well.
Not good. You saw the game. It's not good. We got to clean that up. We can't beat ourselves. Today we beat ourselves a little bit.
He's not going to let them use the excuse that they're tired right now. He knows offense comes and goes, but he expects them to play cleaner baseball on a daily basis, no matter how many days off they've had or not had. And they did not play a clean game in this one at all.
No, and I don't know that this is at the top of mind right now, but when you talk about the Nats being in that massively jumbled National League wildcard mix, games in July do matter as much as games in September. And if you look at the standings, it probably isn't going to be that like any team runs away with that final wild card spot, right? It's probably going to come down to the last few weeks of September, maybe even the last few days of the regular season. And you just hope that if the Nats do wind up back like right at the top of the contention for that third wild card spot, you don't come to regret some of these losses that happened in July when you were fatigued. I know that it becomes tiresome to constantly hear Davey talk about go 1-0 every day, but there is a wisdom to that philosophy of like you have to take each day as its own entity and not get caught up in what just happened, what is about to happen. It's easier said than done, though, clearly. So I mentioned the Nats now being 42-49. 9 of the 49 losses have been shutout losses. Nearly 20% of the Nats losses in this regular season have been shutout losses. The Nats on Monday, no runs, 8 hits, which were 1 double and 7 singles, no walks, 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. The Cardinals starting pitcher was Miles Mikolas. This is his age 35 season. He came into the game with an ERA of 5.19 over 18 starts this regular season, but he on Monday against the Nats tossed a 6 1/3 scoreless innings. And what stood out maybe as much as anything was Monday being a bad day for the Nats' 2 most important position players, talking about C.J. Abrams and James Wood. So C.J. Abrams, right, the Nats' lone all-star, at least for now, for this season. He is the Nats' starting shortstop and number 1 batter, 0 for 4 with 2 errors. Throwing error in the Cardinals, 1-run third, a fielding error in the Cardinals, 2-run eighth. And James Wood, he is the Nats' starting left fielder, number 3 batter, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, ending a 7-game on-base streak to begin his Major League regular season career. Wood, over those first 7 games, got on base 14 times, most times on base by a Nats player over his first 7 Major League regular season games since the franchise moved to D.C. Now, Wood did make a diving catch in this game. Top of the second, a went-out forward diving catch of a line drive off the bat of Brendan Donovan.
Next pitch swung on, line drive left center field. Coming on is Wood. He dives, and he made the catch for the out.
Obviously, there's been so much to like with James Wood so far, but that did kind of stand out and maybe encapsulize the state of the Nats, both Abrams and Wood, each not being at his best in this game.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is 2 young hitters facing a seasoned veteran. And I understand that Mikolas has not had a good season. And you go back and look at it, and he should not be dominating any lineup. But I feel like I've seen this before over the years from him. He is a strike thrower. He does not mess around. He did not walk anybody in this game. And he is good at expanding the zone, making everything move. He's not going to blow you away, but he's going to get you to chase a little bit and make weak contact. And I think a guy like that is savvy enough to know how to make some young, aggressive hitters get a little too aggressive. And I wonder if there was some of that in this game from him against Abrams and Wood and a bunch of others. A low pitch count, quick innings. There were a couple of hard hit balls that they had a little bit of bad luck early on. Their center fielder, Michael Ciani, made a couple of fantastic catches deep towards the wall. One on Abrams in the bottom of the first and one on Juan Yepez in the second. But really, for the most part, Mikolas was in control. I feel like sometimes the Nats struggle more against that kind of starting pitcher than the guy who just comes out and tries to blow you away with fastballs. The softer, mix it up more, keep the ball around the strike zone, but not right over the plate. I feel like those are the guys they struggle with more often.
Well, and we saw a guy like that in Game 3 this series in Kyle Gibson, and the Nats did get some hits off Gibson, but obviously the run production wasn't there. It does end up being an odd series in the regard of the Nats offense against Cardinal starting pitchers. The Nats, over the first 2 games of this series, dominated Cardinal starting pitchers, right? Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn, but the final 2 games of the series end up being a different story. The only Nats player who had multiple hits in this game was Keibert Ruiz. He is the Nats starting catcher and number 5 batter, 2 for 4 with a double and a single.
This episode of Nats Chat is brought to you by DC Grays Baseball. DC Grays Baseball is an all-volunteer nonprofit that brings baseball and softball to kids in under-resourced neighborhoods of D.C. Inspired by the great Grays team of the Negro Leagues, who played many championship seasons in Washington, with stars like Josh Gibson and Buck Leonard, the D.C. Grays have developed their MVP program. It gives boys and girls in underserved parts of D.C. the same opportunity to pursue their baseball and softball dreams as do kids from more affluent parts of the DMV. The Grays provide expert coaching, uniforms, equipment, and tournament travel free of charge. A donation of $100 will help a child in D.C. to participate in the Grays MVP program. The Grays also field a team in the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. Their 2024 season is now underway. To donate and learn more about the Grays, go to dcgrays.com.
Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is still heating up, with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves, alongside greats like Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. I know I'm looking at Clark and Stewart to put up more than their points projections, and I like Reese and Wilson to do the same to their points and rebounds combined projections too. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code BLUEWIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code BLUEWIRE on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Parker raising the arm skyward, now bring him down to the chest. And turns and fires. Swinging a slow roller right side. Parker's not going to get over there, and Yepes feeds him too late. Parker stopped and started again, and Parker's fielding woes continue. For some reason, Parker started then stopped, and Mitchell's not fast, and Gorman beats him to the bag.
The biggest bright spot for the Nats in this 6-0 loss to the Cardinals on Monday was their starting pitcher, Mitchell Parker. He had another good outing. 2 runs, 1 earned in 7 innings, 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He once again threw a lot of strikes, 91 pitches, 63 strikes, 28 balls. Now, the biggest complaint with Parker from this outing was his fielding, which has been an issue and was again an issue. Parker, in the top of the 3rd, allowed an unearned run thanks to a 2-out throwing error by C.J. Abrams in his attempt to complete a 5-6-3 double play. But also in the inning were 2 questionable defensive moments by Parker. He had a leadoff infield single by Nolan Gorman on a 1-2 pitch, was late and way too slow to cover first base. And then Parker on the very next pitch had trouble fielding a first pitch bunt by Michael Ciani on a bunt single. And perhaps as telling as anything, Davey Martinez during his post-game session with you guys was not shy at all in pointing the finger of blame at Parker for those defensive moments.
He struggles with that because we know he falls off to the mound, to the right side. But he's got to get there. He's got to get there on the bunts.
Yeah, I was curious if he would put any of it on Juan Yepes instead. You could argue that on the first one, Yepes maybe could have let Luis Garcia take the play and then Yepes go back and cover first. And obviously on the bunt, maybe if he backs off, lets Parker just take it, that's a different story. But we have seen now, this is a pattern with Mitchell Parker. He has had all kinds of trouble with this. The explanation seems to be the way he falls off the mound after he throws a pitch to his right towards third base, and it takes a lot of time for him to recover to get back. It's not an excuse, though. As David Martinez said, he has to understand the moment he lets go of the ball, he is now another fielder out there for the team, and it's his job to do whatever is asked of him defensively. They worked with him. They gave him that, one-on-one PFP session a couple weeks ago in the sun in the middle of the afternoon before BP one day. He may need another one of those. You've got to get the point across to him. And he's done a lot of really good things. This was overall a good start for him. He made it 7 innings on a hot day when all the other starters in the series, only one of them even completed 5. So that was great. He minimized the damage. But one of these days that's really going to come back to haunt him, a defensive miscue that's going to cost him in a closer game. And he's got to clean it up before it becomes even worse. Maybe it's already in his head. I don't know. But the longer this goes on, the bigger problem that becomes. And it does get psychological and not just physical.
Yeah, fielding with pitchers is always crazy because it's like the last thing you think about with a pitcher. It's probably the least important thing that a pitcher is doing when he's out there. He has so many things to be thinking about when he's pitching. Like, you're almost like you don't want to weigh him down too much with thinking about fielding. But, of course, it does matter. And there are pitchers who, with their defense, have done a lot of good over the years. Greg Maddux, part of his brilliance was that he was a great fielding pitcher. And it's almost like something... You notice it when it's bad. You don't really notice it necessarily when it's good. And we have noticed it with Mitchell Parker. This is now multiple starts this season in which his poor fielding has really stood out. By the way, who would you say is the best fielding pitcher the Nats have had since the franchise came here? Is there anyone who comes to mind in terms of like a great fielding pitcher who the Nats have had?
I remember Doug Fister being really good. He was only here for like a year and a half, something like that. I remember him being very good. I think Jordan Zimmerman was pretty good, if I remember right. Max Scherzer is a good athlete and always thought of himself as being good at everything, of course. And I think for the most part, he was at it. But I'm going to say Doug Fister is my number one guy that I can recall. Livan Hernandez, excellent athlete. Despite what physically he looked like, he could move around very well, anticipate things, always knew where to be on the field. So they have had some of them. And, the thing is, they don't need Parker to be a Gold Glover out there. They just need him to be in the right place at the right time, make the plays you're supposed to make. So what does that mean? Cover first. Get to first immediately on any ground ball to the right side. Even if the first baseman gets back there before you, don't just assume he's going to do it. Be there as another option just in case. That's number one. And number two, bunt plays. That's the biggest thing. Hard hit comebackers, you're going to have tricky things like that. But bunt plays, when usually they're coming, if it's hit back to you almost every time a bunt comes back to the pitcher, that's a play that needs to be made. That's not a tough play. That's usually a routine play, and that's something he's definitely got to clean up.
Yeah, and on the leadoff infield single by Nolan Gorman, Parker was just like asleep. Like, he didn't take off to cover first base. That has nothing to do with like defensive ability or dexterity or anything like that. So it's just like, keep your head in the game, man. Like, you got to be paying attention to what you have to do. And it was smart from a Cardinals perspective on the very next pitch to have Siani bunt. You're causing chaos. You maybe have Parker rattled, and that ended up working out in the Cardinals' favor.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that the more he pitches, the more teams scout him. They see, oh, hey, you can get him this way. And so it's just going to encourage other teams to do things like that, put the pressure on him. That's the last thing you want to have as a reputation around the league, because they will make it worse. They will force the issue. And that's especially why he's got to clean it up soon and not let this blow up into an even bigger problem.
Mitchell Parker in the top of the fourth gave up a leadoff homer by Paul Goldschmidt to left field for a 2-0 Cardinals lead. The homer winner projected 415 feet per StatCast. But look, overall, this was a good outing for Mitchell Parker. And you look at his numbers since being recalled by the Nats from AAA Rochester on April 15th. 16 starts, ERA of 3.44, a whip of 1.09. There is so much to like, and, if he does have a fielding issue, okay, I think we can live with that. He can work on that, but the pitching has been quite good. Also on Monday for the Nats, when it came to their pitching, was another bad game for this fatigued Nats bullpen. Although one of the culprits is a supposedly fresh arm, but two Nats relievers in this game combined to allow 4 runs, 3 earned in 2 innings, capping a series in which Nats relievers in the team's 3 losses combined to allow 11 runs, 8 earned in 12 2/3 innings. Jacob Barnes, he on Monday in the top of the 8th allowed 2 runs, 1 earned on a homer and a double. Barnes, to the first batter he faced, gave up a leadoff homer by Alec Burleson to right field on a 1-2 pitch for a 3-0 Cardinals lead. The homer went a projected 406 feet per StatCast. And then the returning Joan Adon, he on Monday in the top of the 9th allowed 2 runs on 3 singles, and he issued a hit by pitch. As, yes, Joan Adon is back. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced that they had optioned starting pitcher DJ Herz to AAA Rochester and had recalled Joan Adon from Rochester. So there are multiple things to get into here, including who's going to start for the Nats this coming Friday evening. But Joan Adon, it kind of felt like we saw the same Joan Adon who we grew accustomed to seeing in terms of his previous major league stints.
Well, this was unfortunate because I think there was some genuine optimism here that he is actually something that they could use right now, which is a reliever who can give you multiple innings. It's been a problem all year long. They haven't had anybody who could do that. And as you noted, about 2 weeks ago or so, they moved him to a long relief role at Rochester, and he was seeming to have some success with that. So that's the idea why he was brought here. I don't think the plan, at least I don't think, was just to bring him up and have a fresh arm for a day or two and then send him back down. I think they envision him being somebody who could help them in the bullpen over the rest of the season if he can live up to what they need him to be. Now, this was not a good opening act for him at all. Combination of giving up hits, of giving up a stolen base in which he didn't really hold the runner very well, hitting a batter. It just was kind of ugly all around. Now, I'm not going to judge too much on the one outing, but he better be better in the next one. And hopefully it's in a different kind of situation where maybe you're bringing him in, say, the 5th or the 6th inning, and he can give you multiple and bridge the gap to the later inning guys. So I think the philosophy behind bringing him up was sound. Now he's got to go ahead and execute and do what they need him to do, because it is something they have sorely lacked this year. And I think it could make a difference down the stretch if they do this right.
So in terms of DJ Herz, it does seem that him being demoted to Rochester is more about getting Adon up than it is about indicting Herz. But he was due to make one more start before the All-Star break. That was to be this Friday night at the Milwaukee Brewers. Do we think Adon will start that game? Do we think the Nats will call someone up from the minors to start that game?
I think it depends on what happens the next few days in New York. If Adon isn't needed at all, then perhaps he could start the game and it sort of turns into a bullpen game where you have a guy who could go, 4, 5, even 6 innings if he's efficient to start the game. If not, maybe you do call up somebody else. They have an open spot on the 40-man roster now that they could use. They have to. They also have guys like Jackson Rutledge. Thaddeus Ward is still on the 40-man roster. I don't know if he really fits into the picture at all. But I think what they did here, number one, they knew they needed a fresh arm right now, given the way this week had gone. I think they understood that. So they made that move. But the move with Herz, like you said, not really a reflection of them being dissatisfied with him. But there's another element to this, which is a rookie pitcher who has never thrown more than, I think, 112 innings as a professional. That included last year with the Arizona Fall League. You add it up and it was still just 112. They've got to watch him closely. They know that. Here is an opportunity for them to give him some time off. Now, yeah, he officially goes to AAA. Maybe he starts the game. Maybe they limit him to 3 innings, something like that. Then they have, a little time off for their All-Star break. And then get this, the Nats don't need a 5th starter coming out of the break until July 27th. I think it's their 8th game because they do have an off day after the opening series. So I sense that this is them saying, hey, DJ, you're going to be back up here when we need a 5th starter again. In the meantime, here's a chance to take a little breather. And when you come back, hopefully we've bought some time for you so that you can now go back out there and pitch every 5th day the rest of the season. We'll see if it all works out that way. And yes, they're going to have to get through this week still. But I think this was a move that was made to protect his arm and give him a midseason breather so that he hopefully is still fresh for the second half.
But he will be back after the All-Star break. That is a safe assumption to make.
I believe so. Now, again, it may not be the first game back because they could carry an extra reliever until they need that 5th starter. But I think the way things are going now, and again, we also don't know Cade Cavalli if he's going to figure in at some point by then or not. I think we kind of know now that Josiah Gray probably is not. But I got the sense as they were saying goodbye to DJ Herz on Monday that the idea, and even Herz seemed to acknowledge this without coming all the way out and saying it, seemed to acknowledge that he knows this is a temporary move and not a move that could last the rest of the year.
Hey, it's Al Galdi to tell you about the latest offer from Window Nation for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. Get 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. This is better than any offer that you'll hear about regarding the trade deadline. I promise you. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Window Nation is outstanding. Every Window Nation window undergoes a 20-point inspection. Window Nation has a 96% customer satisfaction rating, and 96% of Window Nation windows installed require no follow-up service. Take advantage of this special offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION or windownation.com. And make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Romero comes to the belt. The kick and his pitch, swung on, ground ball to short, gobbled up by Mason Wynn. He plants and throws on to Goldschmidt, and this one is over. The Cardinals take 3 out of 4 for the Nationals and wind up with a losing record on this homestand.
Trevor Williams, I feel like there have not been many updates on him, and now it's been more than a month since he went on the 15-day injured list. June 4th, retroactive to June 1st, right flexor muscle strain. I know that the anticipation at the time was that he was going to be out for a while, but do we know anything about how he's doing and if/when he might be back?
So he has started playing catch recently, so that's good, but obviously that's just the first step. He hasn't gotten on a mound yet, done any of that stuff, and they're going to have to build him back up. I'm sure there was hope from a lot of people, yourself included, that he would be back in time to pitch in the big leagues before the trade deadline, because the way he was going, he was going to have some trade value for them. I'm not saying it's impossible, but they're running out of time for that to be the case. He would have to be on a mound here, I would say, this week, and maybe a short rehab stint before they call him back up. So I think time is just about up for that to happen. I don't think they really expected that to be the case for him to be back before the end of the month, but he is throwing, so that's at least some signs of progress there from him.
And then while we're talking about pitchers on the mend, we have not mentioned this guy in forever. Jose A. Ferrer, the Nats on March 24th put him on a 60-day injured list due to this upper back injury. How is he doing? Do we know? Might he come back? Could he be of some help to this bullpen?
Yeah, and potentially fairly soon. He has made some rehab appearances, including one at Harrisburg, I think, recently. He's been in the Nats clubhouse the last couple of days as they get a look at him here. I don't think he's quite ready yet. I think they're still going to send him out on another rehab assignment, maybe over the All-Star break. But if that goes well and he starts pitching, they usually like for a reliever to be going every other day and maybe even once back-to-back before they put him on the big league staff. But he's a guy I could see before the end of the month coming up, and that would give them a second left-hander, which obviously is something they would love to have because they have not had that all year long.
So next up for the Nats is a 3-game series at the New York Mets. Game 1 Tuesday night at 7:10. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2 Wednesday night at 7:10. Patrick Corbin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 3 Thursday afternoon at 1:10. Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. I think we are going to see a very motivated Jake Irvin on Tuesday night. He got snubbed in terms of making the National League All-Star team. The way things are laid out, he will start this game on Tuesday night and then likely the Nats' final game before the All-Star break on Sunday. So 2 opportunities to make a statement, to shove it in the faces of those who decided not to put him on the NL All-Star team. Of course, this game on Tuesday night is in New York City, which is where MLB's headquarters are located. And we saw Jake Irvin in his last outing, and we've seen at times this season him display some emotion. There is some alpha in Jake Irvin. So I don't know how much this matters in terms of how well a guy ends up pitching, but I would think we will have a motivated Jake Irvin on Tuesday night.
Jake Irvin versus the Big Apple. Bring it on, huh?
Yeah.
It could be. I don't know if it really bothered him or not, the lack of the All-Star selection. I know he pitched really well against the Mets just a few days ago, and he's going to get to face them again. So that's a nice situation, I suppose, unless they have a different approach against him this time. But it would be very nice to see him close out what's been an excellent first half of the season on a high note. Well, I guess he's going to have one more in Milwaukee. And on a little bit of a big stage, maybe start to get some people around the league noticing just how good he has been, because I think we've all come to appreciate here in DC how good Jake Irvin has been this season. Maybe the rest of the sport is going to start to figure that out as well.
We want to send a special shout out to Tate Baum, wishing him a happy 14th birthday. Tate is the biggest Nationals fan in the state of Utah. He watches nearly every Nats game and listens to every episode of the Nats Chat podcast. And Tate will be hoping for a James Wood home run on his birthday. Happy birthday, Tate. Great to hear that. And it would be lovely for James Wood to homer on Tate's birthday. Kind of like the Seinfeld episode with Paul O'Neill, right? And him hitting, what was it? Kramer promised, I think it was 2 home runs to the kid in the hospital. So maybe we can get something like that from James Wood. We'll see.
And then one of them was inside the Parker, so it didn't count, right? According to the kid. Yeah, happy birthday, Tate. I mean, I know we are big in Utah, so it's good to know that you are our biggest fan out there. Nats Nation spreads far and wide. And not just you, I think everybody would love to see James Wood hit a home run at Citi Field. This is his first big league road trip. He said he was excited to go to New York. He's never been to Citi Field before. Let's see how he handles the spotlight of that. Knowing him, I don't think he's going to have too much trouble with that, but it'd be really nice to see some of those like Juan Soto-esque home runs at Citi Field that Juan used to hit for the Nationals there.
Yeah, something tells me James Wood is going to do just fine at the Mets. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the show natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website that we invite you to check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. This installment of the Nats Chat Podcast brought to us by the DC Grays. This Saturday at the Washington Nationals Baseball Academy on Fort DuPont, the Grays are honoring the newly recognized batting averages for Josh Gibson, Leonard Wood, and Judd Wilson. To donate and learn more about the Grays, visit dcgrays.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
It's about a little boy in the hospital. I was wondering if you could do something to lift his spirits.
Sure, I can help you there.
Yeah, well, I promised him that you would hit him 2 home runs today.
What?
Yeah, you know, a couple of dingers.
You promised the kid in the hospital that I'd hit 2 home runs.
Yeah, well, no good?
No, it's no good. It's terrible. I mean, you don't hit home runs like that. It's hard to hit home runs. And where the heck did you get 2 from?
Well, 2 is better than 1.
That's ridiculous. I'm not a home run hitter.
Well, Babe Ruth did it.
He did not.
Oh, you're saying that Babe Ruth was a liar?
I'm not calling him a liar, but he wasn't stupid enough to promise 2.
Well, maybe I did overextend myself.
How the heck did you get in here anyway?
I am McCole Hartman, wide receiver for the NFL. Speeding, it's a rush on the field, in the zone where it matters. As an athlete, I push my limits to win, but when I get behind the wheel, I know the importance of slowing down for safety. Because speeding is illegal. It endangers you, your loved ones, and everyone else on the road. Did you know speeding accounts for more than 1/4 of all traffic-related fatalities nationwide? Just like we need to focus to score touchdowns and win games, we need to be in the zone to stay safe on the road. Speed limits are in place to protect everyone. No matter what the speed limit is, anything over is not only illegal, but dangerous. Like athletes, drivers must stay alert and present because there is no reward for speeding. Nothing is safe about it. Driving over the speed limit might seem like the quicker option, but speeding catches up with you. Stay focused, and in a split second, everything can change. Paid for by NHTSA.